going on? Welcome back to the channel. You're watching Unbiased Magic Reviews, the most objective magic review channel here on YouTube. And today I've got a top 5 mentalism review for you guys. I want to thank you because we've reached 5,000 subscribers. And just as I promised, this is the top 5 mentalism review. And by now you've seen the title, so you know it was a surprise what the theme would be, but you know that this is my picks for the top 5 close-up confabulation effects. So as usual, I have no disclosures, and you guys won't be surprised that the top 5 routines that I've chosen are routines that I've road tested for years, and most of this stuff comes out of books because, of course, the best mentalism is hidden well within the pages of books. So as usual, I'm going to just go over what is the confabulation routine or plot. I'm going to go over a brief history, go over the criteria that I set for this. And when I say close-up, I really mean like parlor setting close-up, right? Because that's the mentalism that I perform. I don't perform on a stage, but I will give you guys a couple of notable mentions for some stage versions that you might like because they're really good. Along the way, I'll try to give you guys, some information about prices in terms of what this stuff would cost now if you pick this up. But keep in mind that all of these routines are routines that I've picked up over the years. None of this stuff is new. And of course, old is gold, right? Because it has stood the test of time. So let's first start out with what is the confabulation effect. So the confabulation effect was really coined from the Alan Shaxson version, which was called confabulation. But if you're curious, what is confabulation? Confabulation is really, creating a imaginary experience to compensate for a loss of memory. That's really what confabulation is. And in medicine, we see that a lot with patients that have like dementia or delirium because they're forgetful. And so they forget previous experiences that they have and they replace it with something imaginary, but they really believe that it's real. They really believe that it occurred. And the main reason why this plot is known as confabulation, and I think the reason why Alan Shaxson called it that is because the presentation is usually an imaginary trip, and so because of that, or a dream, and so because of that, the spectator is making stuff up. And so that is the idea of this. It is a triple prediction effect. So you're going to have at least 3 predictions made ahead of, you have 3 predictions that are made. And typically the way it's presented is that there's a main theme. Sometimes it has to do with a dream car or a vacation, and you have the person name a couple of different things, and then you're jotting them down like on a notepad, and then you immediately are taking out an envelope and handing it to them, or opening it up yourself and showing them the contents. And there's a written prediction that's usually like a paragraph, and it will say, in my dream, I went on a vacation to X place with this person on this date and stuff like that. So that's the typical presentation that you're going to find. So we're going to start out now with the history of the confabulation effect, and I'm going to make this very, very brief because there are so many versions of this effect or this plot that exists out there. We could be here all day, right? So we're going to start out with the first published version, and that was in 1921, and that was in the book The Life and Mysteries of Dr. Q. The effect was called, Mental Projection Extraordinary. And in that effect, this was the most basic version where the mentalist would have a couple of people think of a couple of different things. Somebody would think of a person, somebody would think of a color, somebody would think of a day of the week, and then somebody else would think of like a number from 1 to 1,000,000. So I think there was like 4 things that were predicted, and then the mentalist could immediately hand them the envelope, and inside it had the prediction of the 4 things. Basically, that was like the most basic presentation. And if you do get the book and read it, you'll see that there's a lot of mentalism in there that has to do with apparatus and stuff like that. I mean, there's schematics of apparatus in that book. It's really impressive. But this one effect particularly, you're going to learn 2 different methods. One method uses carbon paper, and a lot of confabulation routines previously, they used to use a lot of carbon paper, and I've purposely eliminated any of those in this top 5 review. Even Alan Shaxson's version used carbon paper as well. And then the second method, really, it uses pocket writing, which I'm really not a big fan of that either, but you know, just so you have an idea of what you're dealing with there. So that was like the first really published version. And then afterwards, around 1947, there was a version that was published that was called Triple Forecast, and that was the version that Alan Shaxson based his version off of. And in the Triple Forecast version, basically used two nested envelopes in that version. The next year, though, 1948, it was Al Coran who came up with the most famous presentation, which really was the Dream Car presentation, or the Dream Holiday presentation as well. He came up with that as well, and that was like 1948. And then it wasn't until the 1960s that Alan Shaxson put out his Confabulation Effect, and then it was really marketed more widely like in the 1970s. And so I think it was 1970s really when it was marketed more widely. So that's really a very brief history of the confabulation plot. Now you can find many different versions that exist out there. Again, I'm just going to try to give you guys really what I think are really like ones that I think you should really focus on, ones that I've had really good success with. None of these are difficult. This is all like beginner level. There's no difficult sleight of hand here. And each of these 5 that I've chosen, they all have like completely different methods. So that's something you might be interested in, because the methods vary. And so because of that, you may like one more than another because the method is totally different. The presentations as well, pretty much they all vary as well too. Some of these have some really elaborate presentations that I think you're gonna like a lot. You know, that's why I picked these out. But really the criteria that I was looking for was that the effect had to be done really close up or parlor setting, that again, there's no carbon paper because I didn't want to mess around with that, and that the prediction could be, you know, given to the spectator. They could like literally take it home with them. You know, that's really the most important things I thought. And that the effect is something that you can perform with a lot of people around you without fear that, you know, you're going to get kind of like caught out, you know, for the most part. So that's really, because that's how I perform. You know, I perform in a setting where, you know, I have a lot of people close by, you know, and sometimes you may have to take a step back so they're not right behind you. But that being said, with that one exception, you really don't have to worry with these routines. So let's get into a couple of notable mentions of routines. And the first one is going to be for those of you that like to perform over video chat. So if you want to perform confabulation over video chat, then my highest recommendation goes to Bakore Magic and their BM project. It's called the BM project. And on there, you're going to learn a confabulation routine, which you can do over video chat. And there's only one little thing that's related to it that you need to know, which is that you will need an assistant to help you to do it. But that being said, it's extremely clever because the prediction, you show like a white card that has a question mark on it, and it's on the table the whole time. You ask the person these questions, and then you immediately are going to pick that up, turn it over, and show them. You can bring it close to the camera, and they'll be able to see that you predicted ahead of time those 3 things that they're going to think of. So it's very clever. The method is excellent for video chat, but you will need somebody to help you to do it. So if you're somebody who performs over video chat, then it's something you may want to check out. Now I'm going to give you guys a couple of notable mentions for stage performers of mentalism. The first one is the lucid dream prediction, and I just really want to pronounce this guy's name correctly. It's Gustavo Viarini. So this is an elaborate stage version. It's not very difficult to perform, but it is very clever structured, and he does use a really interesting subtlety to get around double writing. So if you're looking for something that you could do on stage and you're worried about that, there's a very clever subtlety that he uses to get around that. And he mentions, I think he says it was like Paul Romney's idea to get around that. I can't remember exactly offhand. Again, I don't perform it, but I mentioned it to you guys because I thought it was really clever. So the second notable mention for stage, and this is probably the best confabulation stage routine is Bill Abbott's No-Brainer. Now, if you're familiar with Bill Abbott's No-Brainer, then you will understand what I mean, but it's an excellent version for stage, and I think it's probably the best version you're going to find today that you can pick up. But I will also give you another notable mention for those stage performers, and that is Quentin Reynolds' Confabulating Confabulation. That is another stage version, and there he's using multiple pieces of mail. So it's a very clever way of using other items with you and to make it so that way the load is easier to do. Again, it's designed really for stage, I think, more than close-up, which is why I mention it here as a notable mention, but it's an excellent version. You definitely should take a look at it if you're interested in it. You probably could even do it in a parlor setting as well. So those are a couple of notable mentions of routines I thought you guys may want to take a look at that I saw from Chris Funk in his $1 mystery, and that is a confabulation effect that he does with a dollar bill. And the reason why I thought it was really clever was because of how he gets around the double writing. Again, it's another way of getting around that problem. So if you find that you're using a confabulation effect that does require double writing, you may want to check that out. Even if you don't like his method, you may even just like his presentation and his way of getting around that, which is why I mention this as really a notable mention. Anyway, those are the notable mentions I have for you guys. Now let's finally get into this list of top 5. Again, as usual, I am listing this from orders 5 to 1, 1 being my favorite, 5 being least favorite, although it's still really good. All of these effects have totally different methods, as I mentioned to you guys, and most of them have totally different presentations, which should be a breath of fresh air for you. Starting out with number 5, we have Dreamscape by Scott Creasy. You can find this in his book, Minimalistic Metaphysical Mentalism, the first one. And this is an elaborate confabulation type routine, which at first it just looks like a simple prediction because you're going to ask the spectator a number of questions about them, like their birthday and some of the things that they like. You're going to take out a stack of blank cardstock with a rubber band around it. You tell them you're going to make a prediction. You put a question mark on one of the cards. You make a prediction and put it on the table. You have them think of something. In the version that Scott Creasy goes over in the book, he has them select a tarot card. Now, personally, I never liked that, and I never did it that way. I would just have them freely think of something, and then you could show them that your prediction matches. But he uses the tarot cards in the effect, and that's how you will learn it. And then in continuation, he starts to tell them an elaborate story of a dream he had the night before, and he starts moving the cards, and he starts showing words on the cards that match the story as he starts going through it. And then it does become interesting because it seems like you've predicted who you would be telling the story to, or who's in the dream with you, because you have a physical description of that person on one of the cards, and then the next card has their birthday on there, and then finally also you're able to predict the same tarot card that they had randomly selected. Again, I personally have experimented with it, but using a totally different method instead of using the tarot cards. But definitely workable, even the way that Scott Creasy goes over it. It's very elaborate, it's very clever, it's a great confabulation effect, and it's perfect for one-on-one, close-up, something that you can carry on you. It's very small, and it's very good to perform just in a small setting. I think that you guys would like it a lot. I've had a lot of success with it myself when I've used it because it's just so simple to perform. So that's number 5 on my list of top 5 close-up confabulation effects. Moving along to number 4, we have Nick Lewin's Confabulation. Now this is a very straightforward confabulation routine where you're going to take out a stack of index cards that have a rubber band around them, and you're going to ask the spectator to think of their dream car. He uses the dream car presentation where they tell you the make, the color, and how much it would cost, and then he writes at the bottom of the card his name and the date, immediately gives that to the spectator, reaches into the pocket, takes out the wallet, takes out the envelope that's in the wallet, opens it up, and lets them take out the prediction inside of it. And they can see that the prediction predicts their dream car, basically. So it's like a very basic form of confabulation. And it does use a wallet, and I didn't mention earlier, but it was actually Al Koran that introduced the idea of the envelope coming out of the wallet. And I know a lot of people that use a Jerry O'Connell JOL Plus wallet to do confabulation, which is perfectly fine. But I would recommend, if you are interested in knowing what I would recommend you check out a LePaul wallet. And I will leave a link below to, I think it's like an Etsy site where I know that they sell this wallet still. And this is really a great wallet if you want to do like playing card to sealed envelope in the wallet. And the reason is because it will allow you to prepare the envelope with rubber cement, so that way it really is examinable by the spectator, and it's super easy to load, which is why I mentioned it to you guys in case you're interested in checking it out. It's just my recommendation to you. But that is number 4 on my list of top 5 close-up confabulation effects. Super easy to perform. He really has thought of a lot of things there. Definitely worth checking out. Now, moving along to number 3, we have a confabulation routine that doesn't use any wallet. It's really old, and this is from Oz Perlman, The Ultimate Vacation. You can find this on his Into the Abyss project. And when I say really old, I remember there was actually a prediction effect on there that used the tape recorder. So that gives you an idea how old this is. But as the name implies, Ultimate Vacation, the presentation is going to be that you ask somebody to think of a vacation they went on in the past, maybe like 10 years ago, 5 years ago. You have them think of somebody that went with them, and as well as the year of when that was, and you're able to predict those 3 pieces of information. He actually presents this in a corporate environment. You'll see him perform it like around a table of some corporate people. What makes this really special is that one of the pieces of information, you apparently never know it. So it seems really impossible. And the DIY envelope, it's not really an envelope, but it looks like it, and it'll take you about 30 seconds to make. And when I performed it, spectators really thought it was amazing, because I think it's because it's stapled all around and they can really look at it. They can really examine it closely before they rip it open. So you're going to get really big reactions from your spectators, because it's going to seem absolutely impossible that there was any way you could put anything in it after it was closed, because it looks like it's completely stapled shut. So it's really clever. There's multiple methods at play there. I would say that this is more like probably advanced beginner. It's probably the most difficult version that I'm presenting to you guys here, but definitely within the reach of anyone who wants to learn this confabulation effect. And I've gotten very strong reactions from it, which is why it's number 3 on this list. Moving along to number 2, we have the confabulation routine that probably most people would say is the absolute best confabulation effect of all time, and that is Ron Wilson's Confabulous. And you can find that in his book, The Uncanny Scott. Now, he does go over 3 different methods. One method, or 2 methods, use a wallet, and then the other method just uses an envelope. Very clever ideas. The presentation is very simple because he was a cruise ship magician, so the presentation has to do with being on a cruise or going to a destination and choosing a cruise ship. And so the actual presentation you may want to change, but the actual handling of the routine is extremely clever and super easy, and he's just thought of all of the details. And that's probably why most people think that it's the best confabulation routine that exists, because he's just thought of a lot of things that probably you wouldn't have think of, and it's totally streamlined just to be able to perform and make it look effortless is really what it comes down to, because it's just so simple. If you do perform it without the wallet, he goes over a very clever idea to use with an envelope where the envelope really can be examined. It's really, really clever. So definitely worth checking out. Again, look, you find it in a book, right? That's where you find the best mentalism. And this is number 2 on my list of top 5 close-up confabulation effects. My number 1 pick for my favorite close-up confabulation effect belongs to Jared Kopf in his effect called Steal This Trick. You can find this in Vaticinium ex eventu, and there's actually a couple other prediction type effects in there. But this is by and far my favorite close-up confabulation effect routine, and that is because it is so different from any other version out there that to your spectators it's going to feel more like an amazing experience and less like a prediction. It's going to completely blow them away and entertain them. Super easy to perform. There's no difficult sleight of hand. It's just a great effect all around. Just to give you a good idea of what it's like, you're going to introduce the premise of this. You're going to take out your wallet and you're going to show the spectators that in your billfold, you've got in there a business card, and you tell them that you've got some sayings on that business card, some of your favorite quotes. And they can see that you've got a bill and a receipt in there, and you just kind of leave it in there. And you tell them, we'll get right back to this in a moment. You have a little notepad and you tell the first spectator that you write something down, you fold it up and you tear it off, and you ask them to think of an adjective. You say, think of an interesting adjective. They think of one, they name it, and you're like, oh, that's interesting. You give that to them. You go to the second spectator and you tell them, I want you to think of a noun. You write something down, tear it off, and give it to them. They name a noun. And then finally, the third spectator, you tell them you want them to think of a verb. So you write down something else, tear it off, give it to them. And so then you say, okay, you guys came up with your own saying, right? And then you write down one last thing, you hand it to the fourth person, and you have them read it, and they can see that each paper that you gave them was, a saying, of your own, which is totally different from what they thought of. But in continuation, you can say, like, you guys came up with your own saying, and you repeat it again, and you can like make a joke about it, how it's interesting or whatnot. And then you could say, did you think that that was original? And you could say, actually, it wasn't. You could say, that's all James Joyce. And now you can immediately open up your wallet, take out the contents again, immediately just hand that out to somebody who's right there. They'll be able to turn over the business card and just start reading the quotes, and they'll see that the third quote that's there is what they just came up with themselves. So it's going to absolutely blow them away. It's going to get a lot of laughs because they're not going to believe it. It's going to just be like a very weird and surreal experience for your spectators. Now, Jared Koff does go over like an elaborate way to gaff up a Sharpie, and I've done away with that because I find that to be too annoying. So what I've used is I've just used a chromatic pen, and if you're not familiar with what that is, that's like a pen that you can instantly change the colors of it, so you can write with different colors, like different color ink. And if you're interested in the one that I use, you could just send me an email and I'll send you a link to where you can buy it and what it is, so you can take a look at it. Just because I've done a couple of different routines in mentalism that you need to have a pen that you can use different colors. You can switch it right under the nose of the spectator where they won't even notice that you've changed the color of the ink that you're using right under their nose, basically. But this effect, I can't stress enough to you guys how good it is. The presentation is so out of the box. It's so original and so interesting. It's going to just capture your audiences that you're performing for, the people you're performing for, and you're just going to be like the life of the party. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I think it's just really something special, which is why it's #1 here on my list of top 5 close-up confabulation effects. This is why you guys watch these top 5 mentalism reviews, is for this type of tip, so you can go and find this and learn it and use it because it's that good. And I have by and far used this confabulation effect more than any other on this top 5 list. Anyway, as usual, if you guys think that I missed something, just leave us a comment below. And I've heard some people say that confabulation is not a great routine or plot, and that's from people that don't perform it. Because if you perform it, you'll notice how strong the reactions are you're going to get from it. It's going to blow people away. It really is a strong effect. And for some people, I would say that, especially probably people who perform on stage, it probably would be a great closer for those people. Just, I found all around that it just really entertains people, and it just gets very, very strong reactions, which is why you can see that I've studied the plot extensively. Now, if you haven't subscribed to the channel and you found some of this information useful, I would urge you to subscribe to the channel, because when we get to 7,500 subs, I'm going to be doing another top 5 mentalism review. And I think I'm going to change the topic because I came up with even a better top 5 mentalism review regarding a special utility item that we use in mentalism. And I don't want to tip it here because I don't want somebody to steal my idea, because I've come up with something that you guys are absolutely going to love, which is why I'm going to urge you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because that top 5 mentalism review is going to be very useful to you guys. So if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and once we get to 7,500 subs, I will be putting out that top 5 mentalism review again. I hope that this has been useful to you guys, and I hope I didn't make it too long. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks so much. I look forward to your comments below, and any questions you have, feel free to reach out to me. In any event, I will see you on the next review.